Today on Cooking and Cosplay, I am dressed as my absolute favorite Disney princess, Belle. And I will be making a very traditional French dish called Boeuf Bourguignon, much like the likes of what you'll see at Walt Disney World's Be Our Guest restaurant. They call it braised beef. And for dessert, we will be having a vanilla sponge cake with strawberry roses. I can't wait to show you how all of this works. Let's get started. First thing I want to do is remove my gloves, obviously, because it's a little bit hard to cook in a ball gown as it is, but cooking with gloves, not ideal. So, put that to the side, and of course you want to wash your hands always. Belle has been my favorite Disney princess since she first arrived. Probably because I related to her the most. So being able to play her has just been a dream come true, and I'm excited to actually make something of French culture as well. Boeuf Bourguignon is none other than a French stew. And what you will need, and I got all of this at my local grocer, so it's easy to find. You want chuck steak cut into chunk pieces like this. A mélange of spices, meaning a mix of spices, 2 bay leaves, about 3 to 4 tablespoons of fresh chopped parsley, 2 sprigs of rosemary, and 2 sprigs of thyme, with 2 minced garlic cloves. And I've already put all of that together in my ramekin here. 2 sliced carrots, about a 1/4 cup of shallots, and then this wonderful mix of sea salt and freshly ground pepper. And I also put Gour gum, about a teaspoon of Gour gum in here, and mixed it all up. That's for thickening, because a normal recipe for Boeuf Bourguignon would require a thickening agent such as flour, and since I do things gluten-free, we use Gour gum. We'll also need 1 small can of tomato paste. This is 6 ounces. Some good quality olive oil, beef stock, and a nice hearty red wine. The rule with the French when you cook with wine of any kind is that if you wouldn't drink it yourself, don't put it in your food. I use this Earth Balance butter. I usually use the red tub because it doesn't have soy, but they were out, so we're gonna use this one. And I use just a regular spoonful of this butter. If you use regular butter at home, that's perfectly fine too. I just use this particular kind due to food allergies with my family. As we go along, I'll tell you what sorts of things you can use to substitute normal rather than having to do our allergy-friendly version, because sometimes it's nice to have real butter. So you want to take your 1/4 cup of shallots and just put that into our pan here. Use this, pull that out of the ramekin. And these you want to brown. So make sure that your pan is nice and hot. Now that they're caramelized, I will pull these out. And we'll put these in our crock pot once we have everything ready here. Now we're going to take some extra virgin olive oil and just sort of douse the bottom of our pan. And as you can tell, it's already really hot because it is smoking a little bit. So I'm going to turn that heat down because we don't want it to be too hot, since we do have some of that butter residue. And then I'm going to take our chunk roast here and put that into the pan to sear. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and season our steak with our ground pepper and sea salt. And yes, the flour gum is in there, but it will dissolve in a crock pot, so. You just want to brown these up nice, because it gives a nice caramelized flavoring. Since these are caramelizing up very nicely, I will be carefully pouring this then into the crock pot. The last thing I need to have ready in this pan is the lardon, which is 6 slices of bacon chopped into cubes. Now normally lardons are exactly that, cut into cubes, but since I couldn't find any in the American supermarket, this will do perfectly fine. In fact, I don't think that I've ever seen anywhere in the United States traditional lardon. But that does not mean that it won't be just as delicious. Now that we have our beef braised, we're going to take our shallots that we have caramelized and put that into our crock pot. Just like that. And then we are going to take our carrots and put those in the crock pot as well. All of our spices are parsley, 2 garlic cloves that have been minced, rosemary, thyme, and 2 bay leaves. Those all go inside as well. Some red wine, and about 2 cups of red wine. We have a nice hot stopper right on top, just like that, to keep it fresh, because I'm sure my husband will enjoy some of that later on with his dinner. We're gonna go ahead and open up our tomato paste. First time that I had Boeuf Bourguignon was when I was learning French in high school, and it quickly became one of my favorite French dishes, but it takes so long to make that it's not the most friendly dish, so most people don't like to make it for that reason. But then we went to Disney World, and the restaurant Be Our Guest had braised beef on it, on the menu. And I tasted it, and it was just like all of the memories came flooding back. Because even when I lived in France, I didn't have the opportunity to eat Boeuf Bourguignon very often. But I would say this recipe is very reminiscent of what they have at the Magic Kingdom. So if you like that dish and you've had it before, I think you'll definitely enjoy this version of it. Kind of like having some of that gourmet cooking in your own home. And it's actually quite easy to make, as you can tell, because I am not a chef. The next thing you'll need is your beef stock. So you're going to pour that in. Carefully, of course, not to spill. And most Boeuf Bourguignon recipes call for cognac as well, usually about 1 ounce to 2 ounces of cognac. I couldn't find any, so we'll have to make do without it. But really, what is a French stew or soup without cognac? I feel sad that I'm not going to have it because it does give it a different flavor, but we'll make do, and maybe the kids will like this a little bit better without it. So you want to kind of make sure that the tomato paste is getting into all of the liquid that's in here. And then you're just going to put the lid on the crock pot and put it on high for about 6 hours and watch and make sure that it doesn't boil over. This will thicken, and you want to go back about every 30 to 45 minutes to check on it and make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom, because of course the carrots and other things that are heavy, the meat even, can stick to the bottom of your crock pot and burn, which is never pleasant. And the last thing that you want to add are your lardons. And just go ahead and put that into your crock pot. Now the other thing that you can add, which is traditional, would be about 1 to 1.5 cups of mushrooms. My kids hate mushrooms. They won't touch anything that has mushrooms, so I have omitted it, but it is the traditional way to make this dish. So if you'd like to add that, that is up to you. Now, if you remember, as a thickening agent, I used the Gower gum. And if you are not gluten-free, feel free to use about a tablespoon of flour to thicken this up. We will go ahead and set this to high, and we'll come back and check on this very soon. Let's get started on dessert. So for dessert, we'll be making a vanilla sponge cake. I have here my KitchenAid, which has been a lovely present, and it matches my dress today. I won't be getting one for every episode, changing the color, because that would just be way too expensive. These things are a pretty penny. But we are starting off with 1/2 cup of sorghum flour, 1/2 cup of rice flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of Gower gum, because that's a binding agent and it doesn't have a flavor. Some people like to use bean gum. I prefer the Gower gum because it doesn't leave a weird aftertaste. And then 1 teaspoon of sea salt. So we're gonna go ahead and put that into our mixing bowl. We also have 2 cups of granulated sugar. It's a very sweet cake, that's for sure. And then we are going to go ahead and lower this down and put it on the lowest setting to just sort of mix those things up together, because I've also added 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's what's going to make the cake rise. And if that's not mixed nicely through, you're not gonna get a good chemistry, and then your cake will be flat, or the worst is when you get like a bite of that in your bite, just one little pocket. As this mixes, I'm gonna go ahead and add 4 eggs to the mixture, slowly. And then 1 pre-measured cup of coconut milk. I know this looks like a literal cup, but it isn't a literal cup. It's been pre-measured, but this is coconut milk that's been sitting out at room temperature. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that into the mixture as well. About a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Turn that mixer up just a little bit. And then we have 1 lemon and a zester. You can also use orange zest if you would prefer orange over lemon. I like the lemon because it also matches my dress. But I prefer the citrus flavor over the orange flavor, even though they're both a citrus fruit, I know. So you're just going to sort of grate back and forth like this with your zesting right into the machine. And a little bit does go a long way. You don't need a whole lot. So a small, even a tangerine would be fine. That would be preferable. You're going to use a medium-sized cake pan. I believe this is a 9 or 10 inch cake pan. And preheat your oven to 325. show you what this looks like. It's a little bit runnier consistency, so I'll show you with the spatula. That's about what it should look like when it drips. So you're going to take this now and put it into your cake pan. And voila, then we put this in the oven and we'll come back and make our strawberry roses, which are going to be the topping for our cake. So of course on our cake, we'd like to have a beautiful topping that's reminiscent of Belle. And when I think of Belle, I personally think of roses. Now these roses of course will be red because we're making them with strawberries. Now I've pre-washed these, but this is essentially what will go on top of your cake is a strawberry rose, just like this. So I'm going to show you how to make that right now. First, you're going to take your strawberry that's been pre-cut with the little greens taken off, and you're going to take a paring knife and just slice one thin petal down on each side, so essentially making 4 petals, and leaving a little bit here at the end and pushing out slightly. Otherwise, if you push too hard, the petal will come off. So you want to leave a small amount near the bottom of the strawberry to hold it all together. And I'm still not perfect at this, but I hope I will get better and better as I go along. It's a small petal. So there's the beginning of a rose, just like that. And then you want to take your paring knife and go crisscross right down the center, making 4 more small petals, like that. Pulling each one out just slightly so that we can see the entire rose, just like that. And in the meantime, we're going to make a strawberry compote, which we'll drizzle over the top as well. So on a high heat on our stove, I've taken about 3/4 of a cup of sugar, granulated sugar, and I'm taking these frozen strawberries just directly out of the bag. Now the reason I like the frozen strawberries for a compote like this is that they have a syrup in the bag, which really condenses down nicely into a sauce that can be drizzled. I like to make this dessert usually around Easter time, so I know my kids are going to be freaking out because they love this so very much. And if you have anything laying around, leftover Prosecco or champagne of any kind, a few teaspoons of that in this is also very delicious. Because who doesn't love strawberries and champagne? I know I do. And if it's not watery enough for you, you can always add just a little bit of water, which will turn into a syrupy juice. And if you must thicken it, again, a nice thickening agent is always that Gour gum.